Good evening and welcome to tonight's episode of the Berardi and Coke. That is the Aftermatch podcast, courtesy of the Ought to Know Better podcast. I am Gilly and I am joined by my able assistant this evening, my glamorous assistant, Karl. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Better after last night now, I'll be honest. But yeah, grand.
Good man. We will get an introduction going and then we'll get into the match.
Hi, this is Don Matteo, and you are listening to the Ought to Know Better podcast. Let's do this.
Leader shit.
We're recording, you know.
Oh shit.
We had a good start. I don't think we've got the personnel.
You can fucking laugh all you want, you absolute bellend.
I think about things. That's why you lot are idiots.
A melted version of a dick that's been shrink wrapped.
The absolute elite shithousery of this. Evening, Herbert. So one thing I do have to say is, while trying not to be a fat shit, I am drinking just beer flavored water. It's not real beer, is it?
Did you spend money on that voluntarily?
I mean, I did, but only because it was very cheap.
Questioning life choices, there, Gilly man. Questioning life choices. I've gone with your regular tonight.
Nice. Yeah,
So,
I like that a lot.
My life choices are all right there now at the moment.
Right, okay, so Miwwaww.
Millwall.
Let's take the piss out of their fans first. I actually think that we ought to say, I don't like to be nice in any way at all towards Millwall's fan base on the principle that they're all shithouses. They got fined 20 grand for actual racist chanting when we got fined £200,000 for somebody looking through a chain link fence. You know, there's a lot of shit. There's a lot of water under the bridge between us. But actually, you've got to say, fair play to the ones that actually did turn up. 391 of them, I think maybe it was.
It was indeed, yeah. Great turnout for them.
It's the worst away crowd for some time, isn't it? And I think that, you know, that's probably indicative of the way that they expected the game to go. Fair play to those that did travel. But yeah, I mean, I had to be in the NEL because that's where we got the tickets this time. It was just me and my lad this time. But in the NEL, I mean, you can't hear people that arrived in a taxi from the other side of the ground when you're in the NEL.
Barely hear them where I sit as well, like, if I'm being perfectly honest.
Well, that was the question I was going to ask. I do remember there being one cheer from the South Stand at one point because you heard one thing from them, but that were about it. Was there any banter at all to be had?
There was quite a large chap in a beige jacket who looked like one of those dudes who runs through parks with no clothes on and flashes people. There was one dude like that. And then they tried doing their thing for a little while, but then I think about
that shit.
And then I think about 50 Leeds fans took the piss out of them and they stopped fairly rapid. There wasn't much out of them, to be fair. And I was saying to my mate Deck that I go with, we were standing there and he turned around to me and he was like, I can't ever remember it being that bad. Like the away support being in one little tiny block of the West Stand away section. It's like that was ridiculous. Even in the League One days, we didn't see that. It was mental.
I mean, you know, cold night, does that feature? Certainly it being a midweek game makes it difficult. It does. But at the same time, if the roles were reversed, you know, Leeds would have definitely taken more, wouldn't they?
Yeah, well, like, that's the other thing as well. We can go to their place on a Tuesday night, a rearranged fixture probably at that, and bring a full allocation. Like, we'd sell out that whole end if they'd give it to us, but they've stopped giving us the whole end now, and they just give us the top tier. So, yeah, I think their fans should take a long, hard look at themselves. If they're going to try and be abusive and give the banter, then bring more. It's not going to work, lads. And do you know what? For a load of London lads, I've never seen people more desperate to want to be from Yorkshire with their flat caps. I'll be perfectly honest with you. What's the crack with that? Like, why are they wearing the flat caps if they're from down south? Don't they hate the north? Like, isn't that the way it goes? So
but they're also jealous of it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, yeah. There's
two types of people in the world: those from Yorkshire and those that wish they were from Yorkshire.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So, like, I just don't get them. They're a strange fan base, and if we've any in the comments there, give us an old hello.
Herbert's got family among them, he says. So, can't go too hard on the fan base.
I won't two-foot them too much more.
That's a tough one, isn't it? That is a tough one.
Yeah, that's a heavy one now. Over the last 2 games prior to last night, he must have got some dog abuse. Yeah. That one's not going away at all. Like, overall, they tried, they failed. We probably won't see them ever again unless they get promoted. So, nice one, lads. It's a great way to.
That's not happening, is it? Maybe the season after, if the 3 up, 3 down continues.
Thank you, mister. Thank you very much. None of
that. Okay, so let's touch on the game then. So we saw Rothwell come in. I think, given that it's a home game, and that I think all but one in the last 10 he started at home. Albeit there's then a more defensively minded midfielder started in the away games. Fairly expected, but was it a surprise that there were no more changes? I know that there'd been a couple of question marks over rotation, given that there is a big break coming up. So do you give somebody a few more minutes? Any surprises that we saw the lineup we did?
Well, we discussed it on the pod on Tuesday, how we were thinking that maybe a good option for a rotation would have been bringing out Aronson and putting maybe a Solomon or a Nanto in there and swap them over or something, you know.
I'm sold.
We know that. I didn't even have to say who I was talking about, and you definitely have got that all right anyway. But yeah, we were looking at it and we were kind of like, you know what, yeah, that'd be a good way to do it. But at the same time, you want to give the team that just lost a 17-game run a chance to redeem themselves. And I thought the first half, I don't think anyone came away from the first half feeling that they played well. I think it was the changes, I think, were great, because I thought Rothwell came in and we don't get the ploughing forward when he gets on when Gruev gets on the ball. He's very much, like I mentioned on the pod Tuesday, it's like he has no right foot. After that Portsmouth game, I'm 100% certain that he has no right foot, because he has to, like, he literally contorts his body to pass the ball with his left foot, or he'd have to turn in a full circle to get onto his left foot. And you could see last night with Rothwell and Tanaka in there, the difference in our passing around the back. It was far quicker. There was snapping it. Rothwell was running across the front of the back four, sorting out Rodon. Rodon was ploughing out. It was just quicker. There was no delay in a stuttered pass, because, like, I'm not slating Gruev, don't get me wrong. He's a good footballer, but
we're among friends here, Karl. You don't have to defend yourself in advance.
I'm not. I just don't want people. I don't think people will get that you're not slating them. So sometimes you have to say it. But
why do you hate Gruev?
I hate him because he's got no right foot and he gets about 40 grand a week. Just like I hate every footballer who pretends that they've got a weaker fucking left or right foot. You get paid a stupid amount of money. Be good with both feet. That's not that much to ask. Like, be good with both feet.
Come on.
Yeah, But yeah, no, I thought there could have been a few changes last night. Not many, maybe just 2. And then kind of swapping a few players about, into their natural positions here and there. But we all knew Rothwell was going to come back in. We there was no. I think
we knew that the rest of the starting lineup was going to remain static.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah, so I think Rothwell does add a better dimension to us getting out quickly. Like, I noticed last night sometimes where he'd get the ball in no particular area of the pitch that was dangerous or anything like, but he'd get it and he'd run into space. There was a couple of times where he got it in the middle and he just saw space out wide and he just drove into it. But because there was nothing offering him, he just stopped, but he played the ball instantly, and it dragged two players out there. So it dragged the midfielder that was marking him out and the fullback that he was going into the space towards. So all of a sudden, then you had Solomon coming back inside, and he was receiving the ball quite snappy off Rothwell doing that. And I think that's a great way of just getting forward without complicating the issue. You know, sometimes you can overcomplicate it, and there's other players that do it as well. But I thought Rothwell does it he does it very well, and his timing for it is fantastic as well. So what I'm trying to say is, yeah, the change last night was good. And it, you know, worked.
Yeah, and I think, Smarty's saying in the comments that anybody that wanted Solomon dropping were a dipstick. I have seen a couple of comments saying drop him, and largely that is because they want to see more of Ramazani rather than anything else. Although there are some people that just don't like Solomon. I think mostly though, what I've seen is people wanting rotation because they remember last season and the challenge that we had at the end of March into April, how we looked lethargic and burnt out and all of those sorts of things. And I think that we've been burnt as a fan base so many times, and it's still raw from last season. So I can see people wanting a bit more rotation rather than specifically drop that person. I think that if you considered Solomon and James have been on good form for an extended period now, and the way that they are playing with their respective fullbacks and with Pirot on both sides, it has worked well. Debs, before we came on air, Debs made the comment on Twitter about Firpo, about he were playing a false three because he went everywhere, which I quite liked that. That were good. Yeah. But I mean, just to touch on Rothwell, I didn't think that we saw too many of the penetrative runs that you sometimes get from him, where he'll pick the ball up and he'll go, "Just fucking give it me and I'll do it." Yeah. I don't think he played badly at all. I think he played well, and I think he did make a difference coming into the side for the reasons that you've stated. But I like him getting on the ball and going, right, I'm just going to do it. And, it's almost like a bullish mentality of, give me it and I'll go. I wonder if that's just because we were a bit more controlled or because they didn't really have much in midfield, or what, there could be myriad reasons for that. It were almost like he didn't really need to do that because we were so in control. It felt like we were in control throughout, really, didn't it?
I think bar the first maybe 10 minutes, well, up until we got the goal, they came out of the blocks pretty well. They definitely came to have a go, which you could see quite evidently in the first half. I don't think we ever really controlled the game in the first half as much as we did the second. There was periods towards the last 10 minutes, which has been kind of the last 3-4 games where we've Marianne. Yeah, it's the word of the day on the toilet roll. But yeah, we definitely last 10 minutes has been kind of a thing over the last few games, maybe 3-4 games, where we've more than got into the game with 10 minutes to go in the first half, and we've looked like we're going to carry that on a lot into the second, which has been the case. But the first half kind of tripped me up a bit because they had opportunities. Like, they had that big lump of a centre back. What was his name?
Cooper.
Man, he's an absolute monster, that guy. Even when
it's great that he scored the own goal, isn't it?
It is, but he missed an absolute sitter of a header, which anybody with half a decent football brain would have put that away. But that was like,
would just rooted, wasn't he? His feet didn't move. He just watched it
move. He'll either come out and say, "I knew it was going wide," or he'll come out and say, "We were fucked there." Like, but then towards the end of the first half, like I said, it started to crank up, and then you get them in at half time. I think they did need to have a look at themselves at half time, to be fair. Like, that it wasn't wasn't a stellar performance by any means in the first half, and it'd be nice if Fark had a strong word in the rear, I think.
So just on that, then I'll just pop up my my favourite graph. This is a momentum graph. So you clearly you are right about that element right at the start of the first half, and actually they shaded more of the end of the first half as well, which I'd not recognised that.
It didn't seem that way in the ground.
You know, it didn't feel that way to me either. But then you look at that second half, and it's just insane, really, the level of control that we had.
It's chalk and cheese, isn't it? Like when you look at that and you're kind of like, at the start there, like we had reason to be worried. Look at how much they had there in the opening 10 minutes. Granted, like, you know, it looks like we had quite a bit of control over the game, but it wasn't control like we're used to. You know, there wasn't, I don't know, it just seemed a bit scrappy in that half, you know. But to say that they had that much possession at the end of the first half, it definitely didn't come across like that at all when I was watching the game there. Like,
yeah, I'd agree with that. And it didn't feel that way, but you know, there was a I've lost it now. I can't see it anywhere. But
have you lost your mind?
You got to have had your mind to be able to lose it. But somebody was saying there was some teacups thrown around at half time, and you know, I think it tells a story, doesn't it? Just the level of control that we had entirely throughout the second half. I think my only real concern was it's still 1-0. It's still 1-0.
Yeah,
it's still 1-0. Are we going to get? You know, they've had nothing at all. Are they just going to get some shithouse free kick, of which they got a few that they didn't deserve? They're going to get shithouse free kick. That big lump is going to finally get his head on something and make a meaningful connection, and then all of a sudden it's 1-1, and you're like, ah, shit. And you know that's the worry. That's the concern, isn't it? That whenever it's one goal in it, you can always go that way.
Man, I think the crowd felt that as well. You've heard people talking about the atmosphere and stuff like that, but it doesn't help when I know we're 1-0 up, but everyone has always that thought, like you said earlier in the pod. We've been burned so many times, like, you know what I mean? And to try and look at it and be like, yeah, this is sound, don't worry about it. I'm kind of contradicting myself here a little bit, because I said, you know, numerous times that just enjoy the football, just enjoy it. You know, it's a bit of crack. It was a little worrying last night in places, like, you know what I mean? It was like we'd started the game like we'd finished against Pompey, and it was just a little worrying. But again, when we get on the ball, sometimes we just look really, really good, and then it starts to flow and kick in, which, you know, good teams make that happen, and we do that quite regularly. It just sometimes we're a bit of a flaky outfit to start off with.
Yeah, so Steve Brown, he's not giving up his sources here, but Steve Brown says apparently Farker stopped subs going into change room at half time, gave the team the hairdryer treatment. He worked the second half, was very good. Without giving away his sources, we can't speak to the truth of that. But yeah, that's where coaches make the money, isn't it? It's not going quite right. Let's sort it out. So you know, the fact that we then came out having seen them finish, not recognisable to me, but finish that first half quite strongly, to come back out and manage it. It's also a Jer, so let's take that with a pinch of salt. That's where they make the money. He's making sure that the players are focused, making sure they're doing all the right things, making the right choices, holding the shape wherever he's identifying that there's any weaknesses, anything like that. That's why he's paid the money, and that's why he's the sole head of the footballing side of things. So, I think the balance of the game is fair. I think I just want to touch on the officiating before we go really into the second half and the goals and whatever else, because there are some other bits to discuss. It was fucking appalling, wasn't it? It's not even just to the normal level of bad at this level, but really, really fucking bad.
I genuinely don't know what to make of that referee last night. There was one incident, and I know it's the second half, but when Dan James was running in the box and your man just turned round after James put the ball by him and pushed him over. And I was kind of like, sure, that's a free kick. And then James got clobbered by their left back in the first half, threw on goal. Like, well, he put the ball around him, absolutely clipped him, and there wasn't even a booking. Like Debs stands in front of me at games, and the two of us were kind of like, how was that not a free? Like, at least a booking, like. And then I don't know if you heard it where you were sitting, but the South stand started singing "The referees forgot his cards."
He's got no cards. He's got no
cards. Yeah, and it definitely looked like that because there was some challenges in there, and like, I'm not saying we're angels, no, by any means, but we did seem to get very roughed up by them, and there was a couple of challenges by one or two of their players. There was 2 or 3 of them that they put in, and they could have easily been down to 10 men, like, for some of the challenges, you know, like that one where James put it round the fullback. Like, he's essentially in the box there with no one within 15 yards of him, and it's not even a booking, like.
Yeah,
and
so there was one just in front of me. I don't know which one you mean, because there were, I think, 3 on Dan James alone.
It was
the one where he was running into the box.
Where he received the ball here, and he put it in around the fullback, and the fullback just came around and just absolutely side him down just near the edge of the 18-yard box on the sideline.
The one that happened in front of me, which was nailed on a free kick and a booking. He'd not got to the box, but the ball was easily recoverable by James, because he'd knocked it in front of himself to run onto, and he were easily going to get there, and he were just taken out. Well, for one, that's a free kick, and it wasn't given as a free kick, and for 2, it's a booking, and he wasn't that either. But there were one right on the edge of the box in front of, I think it was the one in front of the South stand, where he's just knocked it past the fullback, not far in front of him, and fullback just pushed him over, and not even made an attempt for the ball. And it's like, what on earth are we doing here? What is going on? Because that's if you don't make an attempt for the ball, you put hands on the attacker and push them over, and then just turn around and run towards the ball. If that's not a penalty, what is?
Man, I honest to God, like, I like Joe Bedford, the Twitter ex-resident ref watch. How are you, Joe? The only game he hadn't booked anyone all season, and probably one of the games where he could have easily booked about 7 of their players. Like, there'd be no question about, if they came away with 7 bookings, there'd be no question as to where they justified bookings. There were justified bookings. And I just couldn't understand, like, how on earth he didn't plow anyone. Like, I just don't get it. Like, it was absolutely mad.
Roland's eviscerated him here. There you go, Jay. There's another good word for you. Officiating was an unpleasant mix of both incompetence and corruption, like a Manhattan made with cough syrup and bottom shelf whiskey.
It sounds like Roland speaking from experience with that.
Yeah, he's given that a go, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's definitely given that a go.
Marvelous medicine. Let's just mix everything in.
So, but he's bang on the money there as well. Like, that wasn't. I wouldn't have even put that down as League One standard refereeing, if I'm being perfectly honest. Like, and to say that we had a Premier League ref on Sunday as well, like,
I mean, who was also appalling, but it's a surprise that we've been able to find somebody worse. And not only have we done that, we've done it in the very next game.
Yeah, I like, who, Joe Bedford, who do we have ref in the next game, and what's the story with him? Like, because we're in bloody London, that's the problem.
Oh, God,
yeah.
Gosh.
So, look, let's put the referee to one side. Let's curb that dude. And I don't mean like in American History X. Let's just put him over there.
Right. What a scene that is.
And then maybe talk about the more positive.
We're in London. That's the fucking difference.
Yeah, I did there. It's wild.
Yeah, so like, hold on now. Tim, Debs and Joe are in there. Tim Robinson. Joe's next thing, nightmare.
Great.
We're going to the Warnock clip again Saturday afternoon, aren't we?
And the thing about that is, Joe's always fair with the refs.
Yeah.
He sees positivity where very few others do. I mean, I know that Jimmy the ref did as well because he's part of that union. But yeah, for Joe to say it's a nightmare is that might influence my prediction.
yeah. Joe's very impartial when it comes to referees. It's always a straight up, this is what
Very
he's
fair.
like. So yeah. Fingers crossed then that he doesn't have a nightmare, but chances are he probably will.
So let's just touch on one of the specific decisions made. This time by the liner. So the one of the only good things Arrington's ever done in a league.
Some backhanded comment there.
No, Pirot plays a great ball into him. Fantastic layoff and a superb finish.
Yeah.
It was an instant. I was sat right behind the liner. I didn't think it was in any way offside. I've seen it back. I don't know what he's seeing. I really don't know what he's seeing. Can you see an offside there?
I don't even think VAR gives that as offside. Genuinely don't think VAR gives that as offside. If like I've seen on Twitter today, or X, if you're to believe that his arse is offside, then I don't know what Aronson you're looking at, because there isn't a fucking pick on him to be offside by his arse. And if you look at the defender's going that way anyway. You can score with your shoulder. His shoulder's beyond Aronson. Therefore,
but you can score with your hand if it's a Palace offside against Bamford.
It's very true. Where they changed the rules just after that. But yeah, I genuinely don't know what the linesman's seen. I've seen some people on X, drawn lines or whatever the case may be, or blah blah blah. There's absolutely no way the referee can spot that, the linesman can spot that offside. He's not even in line with it to give the offside. Have you seen it? He's not even in line with it.
I didn't have a close look at his. I was sat behind him on that side. So in the replay, I've not looked to see specifically where he was in relation to Aronson at the time, but
he's ahead of play. He's ahead of play.
It's criminal anyway.
Like, if you don't have the pace to keep up with a big lump of a centre back like Cooper for Millwall, don't be a fucking linesman.
Yeah, don't do it. But Ian Ward and Steve Brown both make the point. That's the second time that linesman has robbed us. Steve Brown says, same liner that flagged Willie offside at Coventry when he's clearly onside. I think we got an apology for that one. I wonder if we'll get another one this time. But there was no hesitation. It was immediate. It was straight. And now we've been told, sometimes to our frustration, because you think, well, if a player gets injured when they've played on and they're always going to bring it back anyway, what's the value in doing that? But he didn't. It was immediate, because I think they're told, if it's marginal, let play carry on. Yeah. Put your flag up at the point, and then we'll have a discussion. And it wasn't. It was immediate. Yeah. I don't know. Is that somebody? He were getting some stick. Don't get me wrong. Because he was shit, he were getting some stick. And maybe he got in his own head, and he kind of predetermined, right, he's offside. Right, I've given it. Oh shit, he wouldn't have been offside at that point. Who knows? But it was. I think a really, really poor decision.
Yeah.
So let's concentrate on the football, because what a goal that would have been.
It was very silky. It was very smooth, and it was nice movement. And I think Pirot more than made up for his absolute woeful finishing on Sunday with that finish, regardless of whether it counted or not. I think that's good for his confidence. He's able to still finish in his head. He's like, I've still got this. It's absolutely sound. That was just a freak occurrence on Sunday, and I've got it, regardless of whether it was offside or not. I think it's good for his confidence. It's even good for Brendan's confidence that he's actually, it would have been an assist, so he would have had 3. So there's always
for the entire season.
8 goals though. Has he got 8 goals, 9 goals?
He's got this year.
You are?
He's got 1 this year, 1 since the start of this year.
12 games or something, isn't it? Yeah. That's a pretty poor stat, all right, yeah. But I'd like just to touch on Brendan for a second, because I know you love him, and I know he's close to your heart and all that. being honest, right? Not just because you don't particularly like him as a footballer. I didn't say human being. I just said a footballer, right? Do you think he's knackered at the moment, right? Now, the point I make is he's not played this much football in near on 3 years, like 3.5 years nearly. He's not played this much football. Any other time, 36 games, his body's done. He's out. That's the league season over. Do you think, is he just showing signs of fatigue now? Where I noticed last night that the press from him wasn't as intense as it normally is. Now, I know you say running around a lot doesn't win you football matches, but when he initiates the press, the players around him then feel the need to initiate a press as well. That kind of energy is gone, and that's why we were kind of suggesting on Tuesday to maybe rotate maybe Solomon in the middle, because there isn't as much running there as there is on the wing, and he can, players or defenders are afraid to go near him. He's quite quick. He's quite, skillful. Maybe that's why, we were suggesting it. But Aronson is he is looking a bit tired. Do you think, is it,
Yeah, I mean, potentially, but I think you also need to reflect on the words that Farke used about trying to curb some of that and be more measured in his approach to it, because he was trying very hard, but it wasn't really working for him. So it's almost just settle down a little bit. If he'd have done that when he was through on goal, maybe he wouldn't have just p-rolled a toe punt to the keeper at the front post. The other side of things is he had a very good shot on the half volley that would have been travelling towards you, I suspect, that looked like it were going to nestle in the top corner.
It did.
I think that last night was one of his better games for us. I don't think it was good, but it was certainly one of his better games for us. I thought he was. I thought he was better.
Yeah.
He was still largely ineffective, but if you're largely ineffective and that goal goes in the top corner and you get an assist for Piroz, which really we're saying should have happened, actually, as a 10, if you get a goal and an assist, or even if you just get an assist, you've kind of done your job. It's like a striker not playing particularly well up front, but getting a goal or two. Well, he's done his job.
Yeah.
So
that's the thing. Yeah, I can agree with that. Yeah.
To answer the question, I think that we do have to reflect on the comments by Farke saying, can we just settle down and rein it in, try not to do too much, try not to overplay, and maybe that's just him trying to be a little bit more considered.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, because we do talk about that with different players as well at times, don't we, throughout the season? So I suppose it's only fair that we look at it from that point of view for Brendan as well, don't we?
And Tyler Roberts, he very much has a touch of the Tyler Roberts about him. He's not quite as skillful.
Man, I was going to say something totally different there, but I'm so glad my filter is on. Yeah. But yeah, I thought he was very unlucky not to get the assist, and like you mentioned at the start of this particular point, that it was great build-up play, and it showed that we do have it in our locker, even if we're not playing to the best of our ability, and there's moments of brilliance that we can always count on from individuals. But at the same time, it's not just one individual that we need to count on like we did last year. So it kind of, we're going to be left in shock and awe because, I wasn't expecting him to pop up, or whereas last season was like, cut in Somerville, cut in, just cut in. But yeah.
Yeah, so let's just touch upon the second goal then. So Firpo's got the ball, he's played it across. You tell me whether you think it were a dummy or not. I think somebody's misread the ball and just not gone for it.
I think
Tanaka. Wrong.
I think Solomon got a shout from Tanaka because you can see him. He's about. I think so, man. Because he looks like he's about to leather it, and then all of a sudden he just pulls out of it.
Yeah,
and I'm thinking it like he must have got a shout from someone because that's set up lovely for him. Like it's set up lovely, and it was in his stride and everything, and he nearly had to kind of get out of the way essentially. Like, but I think he got a shot or a shout, and Firpo, man, he's the highest rated player in the championship this season. Can't defend
Another
for shit,
assist.
like, but another assist. That's like 9 or 10 assists.
So
If
there were a
only
lad
he
in
could
front of me in the
defend.
NEL. Yeah, there were a lad in front of me in the NEL. He were probably about my age, and his old man were there, and they were giving each other. His old man were in front of me, and his lad were 2 seats over with probably either his kid or whatever in between them. And his old man turned around to me at half time and went, "He does wind me up about Firpo. He's constantly on about him." And into the second half, all they were doing was, "Oh, well played, Junior. Go on, Firps," all the way through it, and he was proper winding his old man up. And he turned to me and he said, "He does rate him, but a lot of what he's saying is just there to wind me up." And I'm like, "Yeah, fair play, that's fine." And they'd missed actually that it was Firpo that had rolled it across the box, and I just leant over to the younger lad and I went, "Would that a Firpo assist?" And he went, "You fucking more! I fucking I told you!" Giving his old man some shit.
That's brilliant. I love stuff like that, man. That's class.
Yeah.
That's absolutely.
Yeah, and
like
you could see,
there
were 3 or 4 generations at same family there, and you're like, that's actually what it's about. That's it. So I thought that that it would circumstance more than anything. I thought Firpo were going for Solomon, and Solomon kind of left it. Whether that's because he were on his heels and he were going to arrive at it too late or whatever, or whether he got a shout, who knows? They'd have to tell us. But he gets to Tanaka, and I mean that's a measured finish in half, isn't it? Because Pirot talked earlier in the season when he were on. I don't think it was the West Stand. It might have been the official podcast. And he talked about having been trained from a really young age to just pass the ball into the goal. And you can see a lot of the time that that's what he's doing. He's got the ability to lever it from time to time, but and we've seen that. But most of the time, especially if in one-on-one, he's kind of trying to pass it into bottom corner or whatever. Tanaka seemed to do that from about 20 yards with loads of pace on it with a side foot. And that's some technique, that. We can't hear you, Karl. I don't know if that's just me. Somebody let us know in the comments if you can hear Karl and it's just at my end. I've still got no, I'm afraid. Yeah, they're all saying you're muted. So just while Karl has a go at sorting out his audio, if you can just let me know in the comments who you think the man of the match was. I don't want to lead the witness on that one. So if you just stick some names in the chat, I think I've got some of the scores in front of me, so we can have a look at that. But yeah, Karl's just having a few technical difficulties, so get your names in the chat. And just while I'm giving you an opportunity to do that, I'm just going to spin through a few of the comments. So Paul Atkinson says, Rothwell was good and made a difference, but his set-piece balls seem to have gone to pot lately. There were a few groans about front man, beating the first man and that around me. Albeit it was in the Northeast Lower, which is famously full of Facebook fans, which means, you get all sorts of shit takes sometimes. But yeah, I thought he was effective, but I think it's a fair point when you look at the impact he was able to have when he and Struijk came on, and it was so pinpoint. Albeit, actually, now I think of it, the second one, I think he hit the first man and it just bounced back to him, and he was able to drop a shoulder and then put it in with his left. But given his ability on it, it is disappointing when it doesn't come off, isn't it? So I think that's a fair comment. Roland says, give DJ a rest and start Nonto. DJ's been getting his ass kicked like non-stop the past few matches. I think if you think of, so he was flattened and he was kicked a couple of times against Millwall. He was absolutely leathered in the box in the previous game, wasn't he? He just outright kicked from behind, which was a really bad one. So he has, but I think the other side to things is Aronson's energy was a little off compared to the energy that he's shown in previous games, but Dan James's wasn't. And some of the pace that he was doing and some of the closing down that DJ was doing, I think that it would be a bit of a miss. Albeit, I think we do have to find a way to get Nonto and Ramazani in, because at some point, if there are any issues with the starting wingers, we need them to be ready. And I think, having 3 to 5 minutes even there is not really enough. So that might be a shout. Andy says, no bookings for either team. Are the refs getting worse? I think on the showing of the last 2 games, absolutely, the refs are getting worse. So fingers crossed that one stops. I'm just going to check in the comments just to make sure that I've not gone quiet. Yes, okay. Nobody's saying that I've gone quiet, so that's okay. Johnny Brown with an interesting stat. They had 4 touches in our box all game. That's really quite incredible as a stat. I'd not seen that one, so that's an interesting one. I like that one. Fair play, Johnny. Joe Bedford says, don't mention handball with QPR coming up. Very, very fair shout on that one. Let's just hope, maybe against all hope, given that you said it were going to be a nightmare, let's just hope that the officials have a good game at the weekend. And Jay says, poor Brendy robbed by circumstance. I'm not going to go back onto that part of the conversation because everybody already knows my opinion anyway. We don't need to. So it's fine. So I'll just spin through. So Michael Gott thinks Rothwell. Herbert thinks maybe Tanaka. Steve Brown also says Tanaka. Roland says Rothwell with Firpo second. Paul Brennan says Joe Rothwell. Deb says Tanaka. McDunn says Tanaka. He's overtaking Rothwell now because is that Hlu Owens? Says Tanaka for me. It's between Tanaka and Rothwell. Here we go. And then just Paul Brennan says Joe Rothwell, now Tanaka have a great partnership and an understanding of each other. Both fantastic together, which is absolutely a fair shout. If I just spin through the scores on Sofa Score, Melly had a 6.6, Bogle had a 6.4, which I didn't think he was that bad, but fair play. Joe Rodon, solid again, 7.3. Stroik, 7.2. Firpo with a 7.7. Obviously, his assist helps with that one. Tanaka with an 8. Rothwell with a 7.6. Solomon with a 7.7. Aronson with a 7.7. James with a 6.7. And Pirot with a 7.2. I suspect Pirot would have had an 8 plus if the offside had not been given, which does seem somewhat unfair, doesn't it? That his goal gets affected by that, but never mind. So just Carl's just coming back in. I'm just going to do something that we do fairly regularly, and I'm just going to read out the Andy's Man Club aspect. If you're going through a storm or recently been through one and you're a man over 18, perhaps Andy's Man Club Leeds may be able to help you. With venues in Horsforth, Kirkstall, Pudsey, Central Leeds, Beeston, Seacroft and Morley. Open 7 p.m. till 9 p.m. every Monday barring bank holidays. They also run weekly and monthly social events with the aim to get men talking and to smash the stigma around men's mental health. Details of venues and everything they're doing is at Andy's Man Club Leeds Facebook, so give them a follow and help spread the word. And just before I touch on the very last thing, Carl, are you with us? You are not with us. Still no audio. So just one other thing that, in fact, Carl, I'll let's do it in. It's not sophomore, is it? What's the flags? I can't remember what it's called. Somebody in the comments will tell us. I'm sure it begins with an S. But I'll ask you who your man of the match was, and you can signal to me who it was. No, you can't, because now your video's frozen as well. Super. Right, so I'll come on to the last. I come on to the last part that I just wanted to mention. There is a charity semaphore. Yes, Roland, sophomore. It's not too far away, is it? There is an exciting thing coming in the summer. We are in a charity football event with other Leeds content creators. Joe Blackburn is kind of leading on things with support from Joe, ourselves, various others. and we are in a position now where we've set ourselves a challenge to get a bigger crowd there than Millwall brought last night, which shouldn't be too big a challenge. But so if you can, we will share a poll that's going where Joe's just looking for an idea of numbers of who's going to be watching online, so we can get that set up right, because it will be streaming, hopefully streaming live. There are going to be people in the stands on the day, because we are playing in an actual stadium. So if you are expecting to come along or hoping to come along, if you could just respond and let us know. We'll share the poll on our socials if you can go and just respond there. I'm really looking forward to it. I've dropped over a stone. I'm in a position where I can start doing some fitness training. I'm not quite on the grass, although the one thing that I would mention that's in today's Ampadu is, which is nice. But yeah, I'm not quite on the grass yet, but I have been out, and it's a perfect excuse to go and buy some Adidas World Cup football boots, which I did at the weekend, which is very exciting as well. Karl, no, you're still not on. You do get to see Jay make a right twat of himself, as he says, not as I'm saying, and Karl too. So I think, we're going to be sharing it on our socials. It's in aid of prostate cancer. There's going to be presence from Andy's Man Club. We are working with both Leeds United, the club, and the Leeds United Foundation. So hopefully there'll be elements there. And I think we'll get to Gilly is Patrick Bamford, and I collect my £5. I don't know what that means, but okay. Yeah, we are looking forward to it, and it should be a great event, and we should be raising loads of money. So we'll be getting the fundraisers set up and all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, no, really looking forward to it, and hope you can all get involved. So on that note, I'm going to bring this to a close. We will be back for the next one. Will be the B&C, and then the main pod next week. But there'll be a B&C from the game at the weekend. And I'm going to ask Karl to wave, because we still can't hear him. And we'll get an outro going. Are you going to give us a wave? There we go. Bye.